Good evening. It's 21:50 Central African Time, and we are glad you have joined us on Ubuntu channel right here on the Wednesday's edition of Meet Your Leaders. Tonight, we shall be joined by our guest, the Permanent Secretary for Administration, Maambo Haamaundu, and I'm so excited, as usual, to actually have my co-host Lance, and my name is Chaza right here. Good evening, Honorable Haamaundu.
Good evening, Chaza. Good evening, Lance, and good evening to everyone who's following us on Ubuntu channel.
Great. Good evening, Lance. How are you doing this evening?
Evening, Chaza. Evening, Mr. Haamaundu. Evening to our followers of Ubuntu channel and the followers of this particular program. I am doing fine, Chaza. Thank you. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty fine, and congratulations to the Shipolo Polo, who have just actually, won the game that was there against Senegal.
Definitely, it's a great congratulations to them, not only for winning Chaza, but also for qualifying to the World Cup, because by essence of them qualifying to the semi-finals, they have also booked their flight into the World Cup for the women's games. So it's congratulations to them for that milestone, and also congratulations to head coach Bruce Mwape together with his technical team for the great milestone that the girls have done, because this is great and in a joyous moment in time. Trust me, would have been playing Vuvuzela song if I was on radio. But hey, this is Ubuntu, and we get straight, obviously, into our topic of discussion.
Indeed, and there's been, some talk going on between men's football and women's football. Apparently, we actually, retreat. Women have actually beaten us, pants down, hats off, and we are definitely rallying, behind them.
Definitely rallying behind them. They have done us proud, and Pamanja, I think once it is Kache, we'll be watching the Shipolopolo, because I can't manage to have a BP kit, to have Panadol, Rufedo, paracetamol, and all these other kind of stuff for me to watch the Chipolopolo. So I've shifted. I'm a super fan for Shipolopolo. So it's really great.
We have no option, indeed. All right, the topic of the day, ladies and gentlemen, is the portfolio functions of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. And just like I earlier indicated, to help us, discuss or tackle this issue, we have the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, Permanent Secretary for Administration. First of all, I think the first thing that we'd like to find out are the core functions or core business or the core mandate of this ministry. Sir, please just run us down so that we have, a highlight of the functions or the business that are core to this ministry.
Oh, if you parliamentarians, I would actually be telling you to say that, our portfolios or our functions are guided by Gazette Notice number 1123 of 2021. But since you are not parliamentarians, I'll quickly just try and see if I can highlight some areas which broadly cover the essence of what the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development does. And just from the name itself, you can tell that local government, it means we are in charge of the local authorities, all the 116 local authorities across the country under the ambit of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. And of course, we are also responsible for driving the rural development agenda, hence the aspect of CDF now sitting with the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. We are also, as a ministry, in charge of urban planning. So we look at feeder roads, we look at we look at patching of potholes or these other municipality activities, which ordinarily are looked at as the responsibility of the council. So in short, we offer oversight over the local authorities. And another critical issue that we look at as a ministry is the aspect of chiefs. All the 288 chiefdoms that are in this country clearly sit under the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. And we're also in charge of, weddings, we're in charge of cemeteries. So generally, the Ministry of Local Government is in charge of life, in a manner of speaking. So because many of the areas that are within the country, you cannot move for a long distance without identifying an activity that is related to the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. So our responsibilities are quite vast as a ministry.
Thank you so much. We are glad to have that highlight as regards the functions of the local authority, or rather the local government on top there. I'd like to find out how the management of the cities is actually done by local government, especially that we have seen that one of the issues that the New Dawn had was to get rid of the disorder or mismanagement that was in the bus stations. So how is it like? How are the markets managed and bus stations, especially in terms of revenue as we stand today?
Oh, look, I like you. I like you what you are putting forth, but perhaps the word "getting rid" might not necessarily be correct. But what we are doing as a ministry through the local authorities is to manage. I think over a period of time we did realize to say that a number of responsibilities, which are primarily by law and regulation, are the responsibility of the local authorities, had been taken over by people who ordinarily did not have the mandate to carry out these responsibilities. I think that it is an open secret that when you are talking of bus stops, when you are talking of markets, when you are talking of the street generally, you will not run away from the fact that, particularly in the urbanized parts of Zambia, that most of these were being controlled by cadres. We heard, we read, we saw with our own eyes situations where political cadres had taken over bus stops, political cadres had taken over markets, political cadres were in charge of many things in this country. But with the UPND government is now saying that the rule of law must be respected. And when you look at the 8th National Development Plan, one of the anchors of the 8th National Development Plan is that we will support the rule of law. We will observe the rule of law. And when we do that, that is what will anchor or will support economic development, of course, supported by human beings such as yourself. Hence, government moving in and saying that we need free education. So that, in essence, defines what the UPND government is doing. So when we are looking at markets, when we are looking at bus stops, we are now gravitating towards ensuring that these are managed properly by the local authorities. Yeah, that's the question to say, what is happening to the revenues of the markets? What is happening to the revenues of coming through from bus stops? There has been clearly an improvement in terms of the amounts of money that the local authorities across the country are raking in. There's been a significant improvement in terms of money which is being receipted from the local authorities, because when you go into these bus stops, the incidence of cadarism has significantly dropped. Yes, there could be a few isolated cases where we still have people who want to live in the past, people who do not want to accept that the syllabus has changed. The aspect of cadarism has been taken out from the syllabus. Those of us who went to school in Kaunda's time, mathematics used to have the syllabus B. But I think those of you who went to school later on, the syllabus is different. So we should move with the changes in time. The president has declared himself, government has declared itself to say there shall be no cadarism. And those of you who want to resist, I'm afraid to say that you will find yourself on the wrong side, because government is saying the law must be respected. Institutions of governance, local authorities must be given the mandate to do what they are supposed to do in order to deliver service to the public, because that is one of the core functions of these municipalities, is to provide municipal services such as reasonably good roads, feeder roads, access to water, and generally to ensure that the environment within the cities, within the towns, within the municipalities are in a sanitary condition. Public health matters clearly sit under the local authorities. That's why government has said that local authorities must be allowed to operate and therefore enable them to deliver to the expectation of the masses.
Great. I'll bring you back to the issue of roads. I think we actually see quite a number of roads, especially away from the capital city. Roads are not well maintained. I would like to find out from you, because you talked about patching up potholes and so on and so forth. What exactly is the problem as we see these roads in the status in which they are?
Well, the clear problem is a problem which you and I are aware of. The clear problem is that as a people, as a nation, we are highly indebted. We borrowed significant amounts of money, which we owe to various institutions. And I think I do recall at one point, the president was actually elaborating to say he comes from the business background, and when you have a huge liability on one hand, you must have an asset on another hand. So the equation must be balancing. But what is obtaining is that indeed the equation is not necessarily balancing, because you are driving from Lusaka, you are going into the Copper Belt. The road is not in a good condition. When you go past Serenge going into Mpika, the road is not good, and yet the country was being told to say roads are being worked on, infrastructure is being built. You go into the rural parts of this country, you find a number of incomplete structures, schools, clinics. You find feeder roads that have not been worked on properly. Yet the narrative which was being driven was that we have a lot of development. Now, the irony of it all is that, having said there's a lot of development, when you look at it from that perspective, you are asking yourself a question to say, but where is this development? If we borrowed so much money, why did we not complete the clinics? Why did we not complete the schools? Why do we still have substandard roads, in many parts of this country? That is why there is a strong feeling to say the answer could lie that most of this money was went through in dubious manners. There is suspicion that there was corruption, and once you have corruption, many a time you tend not to deliver to the expectations of people. And politics being what it is, you find that people begin to assign, to say it is you who's not done this, or you have failed to do this, and they forget the immediate history. And the people who are actually in charge of these also begin to speak and to drive the narrative to say you are not doing your work properly, when the reality is that they overborrowed and perhaps the money was not used in the most prudent manner. You asked me a question to say why indeed are there so many potholes. That is one of the reasons, and I must also hasten to mention here to say that as the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, we are responsible for township roads. The other roads, which are referred to as trunk roads, sit in another ministry. That is the Ministry of Infrastructure. But suffice to say that I think I'm competent enough to make a comment from that perspective, because we are one government, we have one agenda, and the agenda is to put this country back on a path of economic recovery. The agenda is to put this country back in a situation where things are being done in an orderly manner.
Right, thank you so much. I'll bring you to another problem that we have actually observed in the communities where we come from. I think garbage collection, garbage management is also one of the paramount problems that communities are facing. It looks as though it has been left to private management. As a ministry, do you have any deliberate policy or plan that you have put in place as regards garbage collection, garbage management?
Well, garbage management or collection is one of the responsibility which the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development oversees. It's generally referred to as solid waste management. And yes, it is true that when you move around the urbanized parts of this country, we pick Lusaka as an example. You go into Freedom Way in the night, you'd find that in the islands, there are people who are trashing vegetables, there are people cooking maize. There's all kinds of garbage which is actually being put in the center, in the islands between the roads going north and south. That is Freedom Way. You go to Cairo Road. The situation was similar. Though in the last few days you can actually see that there's been a reasonable improvement in terms of Cairo Road. But when you go into Freedom Way, the picture is not that great. So the question that you're asking is, are we managing this sector to the expectations of the people? From that perspective, I can say that the answer is no. But what we also need to do as the people now is to interrogate the reason why it is so. Who is it that is responsible for generation of this garbage? Who are the people who are getting, rape, garbage, who are putting plastics in the center, in the center of the road, or in the islands, on Freedom Way, or in the islands on Cairo Road? The answer is, it's you and me. It's our brothers and sisters. It's our mothers. When you go into Freedom Way, 3 weeks ago, there are some concrete bins which have been placed. You'd find that people are not putting this garbage into these bins, but they opt to just dump it anywhere indiscriminately. So that to me is an indication to say we need to change our attitudes as a people, because when you go into many of our homes, you find that we've got bins. Or if we don't have bins, we've got plastics where we put the garbage, tie it properly, waiting for the person who's supposed to collect this garbage to come and collect it. And why is it that when we are in the CBD, we do not do that? Is it that we are deliberately irresponsible? Or is it that we need to be guided to say this is what you do? That is a question which the public or ourselves individually are supposed to answer. Some of us or some of the people who are listening to us now do travel. The moment you cross the border at Katimamulilo, going into Namibia, or at Kazungula, going into Botswana, you are in a vehicle, you are having your banana, you're having your orange, you will not dare open the window and throw the banana peels away or the oranges. Why? It is because you've been told to say this is not permissible in Botswana. But you are the same person who just a few kilometers away, you were throwing away garbage. So the question is it that we want to respect the law when we're in foreign countries? Or what is the issue there? I'm bringing it back home. In Lumwana, this is in Solwezi. In Lumwana, when you are moving in Lumwana, you will not find people throwing garbage anyhow. They have developed a discipline of putting garbage in designated places. So from what I've said, my position is, or the position of government generally is, that we need to change our behavioral aspect in terms of how we manage garbage. Secondly, there are a few people in Lusaka particularly, I'll give an example of Lusaka, around the Misisi area, who are making money from garbage. They collect plastics, they collect paper, and sell it to people who are involved in recycling, and they're making a living out of it. The question is, haven't people realized to say they can make money out of this? The answer is yes, they have not. And I think as we go forward with heightened sensitization, we are likely to see a reduction in the availability of plastics and papers on the streets. The moment people realize to say you can make money out of this, they will be picking this paper. But most importantly as well, it will be necessary that we inculcate in ourselves a sense of responsibility, and we must also begin to separate garbage. We could have a plastic where we have just plastics, another one will just have paper, the other one might have things which are biodegradable. And we are hoping to reach a level where, as a country, people will be fighting to keep this garbage because it is worth money. But the starting point is we must respect the law. There are regulations that are existing in this country which do not allow us to litter anyhow. There are regulations which are existing in this country, or bylaws which are being espoused by local authorities, which stipulate that all business premises must subscribe to waste collection companies. But when you carry out a survey in many of these business premises across the country, you find that they do not comply. So what we must do as a people now, or indeed what the local authorities will be doing going into the future, is that they will step up activities of compliance. They will be going into Cairo Road, they'll be going into Chachacha Road, they'll be going into Freedom Way, they'll be going into into Buseko Road on the Copper Belt. They'll be going into all these main streets in Abanai, Zambia, to carry out compliance checks. And anyone who will be found not complying to the regulations that are prescribed will have to face the penalty as prescribed by law. So, in essence, what I'm communicating to you is that the challenge that we have had in terms of solid waste management stems from issues around attitude and compounded by the fact that the local authorities had powers usurped from them by cadres, and therefore they were toothless in a manner of speaking. But now the local authorities are being told to say, you have been given back your authority, you've been given back your mandate. Go out there and execute your assignments. People are waiting to see the results. And if it means in the process, Chaza is found wanting, it doesn't matter whether, because Chaza is at Ubuntu, Chaza is a seasoned journalist, Chaza is a person who is well respected. If they are offending the law, they must be dealt with in a manner that an ordinary person who does not have the stature of Chaza is dealt with. So the law must be respected.
Great. We have seen that you have embarked on, through the local authorities, you have embarked on the removal of mobile money from some places. I would like to find out from you, because people have cried and they are saying, there are no jobs in Zambia, and by so doing, you're taking away, jobs from these people. What could have been the objective, and what is the alternative, solution as regards these removal?
Well, thank you very much. Indeed, in Lusaka, we saw in the last few days that a number of booths were moved with an intention of relocation. And I must actually mention to you to say that the local authorities, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, and the Association of Book Owners have been having engagements, have been having conversations from as early as September 2021 with regards to the subject of booths on Cairo Road, booths on Chachacha Road, booths on Freedom Way. And you will note that most of these booths were actually located in places which were either causing, were obstructing traffic and therefore a potential hazard. They were located in places where the environment is unsanitary. They were located in front of doors for other businesses. So simply stated, they were in places which are not designated as trading places. So what the local authority is doing is to restore order, to ensure that people are given or occupy spaces which are permissible for a particular kind of business that they're engaged in. Yes, we do realize that a number of people are not in employment, and this is a possible source of livelihood. But I can ask a question to say that: would you be happy, Chaza, if somebody came and built a house right at the entrance to your house, even if it's just 1 meter away from your door? They start building a house there. The answer is no, you would not be happy. Now, this is the challenge that we had as a country. booths were being put in front of shops in Cairo Road. This shop owner employs people. This shop owner pays taxes to the country. This shop owner employs a number of people. They pay rates to the council. Yet they were being told to say, you know, that is the level of lawlessness that we had reached as a country. And another thing is this: you ask yourself a question to say, these booths, if we're to be sincere with ourselves, and we interview majority of the people who have been told to relocate, and some of them actually moved their booths voluntarily. To ask them a question to say, who allocated you the trading space? You'd find that many of them would be telling you to say, Niwa Cairo one, Niwa chairman, Niwa so. None of them might actually come out and say, I went to the council, I applied, and I was designated this place as a trading place. Remember, you asked me a question to say, what are the functions of the ministry? And I indicated to say one of our functions is we oversee local authorities. And one of the responsibilities of local authorities is to designate trading places. Now, if the local authorities were not designating trading places, who is it that was putting a booth where there is no toilet? Who is it that was putting a booth which is blocking visibility for people who are driving and therefore posing a danger to the person who's operating in the booth and also other road users, because potentially there could be an accident which could happen. So these are the challenges that were there, and this is one of the reasons why the local authorities are now saying we need to ensure that we introduce sanity. The sanity that is being referred to is designation of trading places which have appropriate social amenities to meet what has been prescribed. You asked the question to say, what alternatives are there for these booths? A place has been identified, particularly in Lusaka. A place has been identified near the post office. And when you go to the post office, you see that in the corner, there's a public toilet. Another place has been identified near Findeco. There too, there's a public toilet. But beyond that, if you do carry out a survey, you would find that some of these, the majority of these booths that were actually in town, when you look at the licenses, or when you look at, you go behind the scenes and you engage the mobile network provider to say, you gave an agency line to Maambo Haamaundu. Where did he apply as a place of operation? You'd find that most of them, it's actually out of the central business district. But how did they find themselves in the central business district? It is because Cairo 1 said, Bwelani apa, mpase ni 5 pin, nzaku pasani plot up. That is the ill which we are trying to cure, and we have in fact moved very close to curing. And even in other parts of the country, we have actually sent message out there to the local authorities to say, play your role as local authorities. You'd be interested to know that just this afternoon, I had a conversation with a number of people where people were calling from Ndola, people were calling from Wansha, and they were telling me to say in Ndola, in Wansha, the booths were being given by, or the places of trading were being allocated by the local authorities. And my response to them was, if that is the case, if the local authorities are the ones who designated you a trading place, then there is no need to worry at all, because they have told you to say operate from here. And then what that means in essence is that that is a designated trading place. However, if the person who was giving out that piece of land as a trading place did it without following the regulation, despite them being a council employee, then they would have to answer to people within their offices who are higher than them, because not every place is designated as a market. Not every place is designated as a residential area. Not every place is designated as a commercial area. There will be all these variations. And I actually did give an example to say, you see, those of us who had an opportunity to have been around in the 80s, I'll give you an example of Lusaka's Kabwata Site and Service. That was a project under the World Bank. When that place was being developed, before you commence any building activities, you went to the local authorities. In fact, the local authorities had site officers. You went to the local authorities, presented your plan, and once your plan is approved, that's when you go to site to now place the plan onto the ground. And the council would come to inspect as to whether you are actually following the specifications as laid out in the plan. When you dig your foundation, they will check to see how deep it is, whether it meets the prescribed standard. So the point that I'm driving across is that the local authorities were playing their role. And that is extremely important. That's why now we are saying, let the local authority take charge and do what they are mandated to by law. After all, they leave home every day to go for work, and they cannot have an excuse for not doing their work, because, like I indicated earlier on, the syllabus of Kadaism, political Kadaism, has been deleted. It no longer exists. So they have a big responsibility, and there's a huge expectations from the public in terms of them delivering to the expectation of the public.
Thank you so much. I am not alone here. I have my co-host Lance, and we have also been joined by Nachisengu. I will invite her to actually ask her question. Then on the other side, Lance gets to take over so that we also have a set of questions from him. And we'll also invite the public to join us. So at this point in time, I'm inviting you, Nachisengu. Good evening.
Good evening, Chaza. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Honorable. Thank you so much. You've taught me a lot, and you've talked about a lot of good things. But I also have questions for you. Number one, you've talked about the local government being in charge of all these things. I wrote them all down, but I won't go through them. But I have two very important questions for you. When you were coming into power, you knew there was a problem with people that were selling whatever, those booth things, that the people operated. That was a problem when you were coming into government. Why couldn't you come up with an action plan before you even had your CDF funds allocated to cities or provinces or whatever it is? Because what you've done now is you've gone and actually annoyed a lot of people. I don't understand what kind of a model you are using as a government to get rid of people who are actually using those telephone booths or whatever you may call them to they're a source of income for them. Okay, so I'll give you a really good example. I've seen Simon Wewa. I don't live in Zambia myself, but I watch a lot of things that Simon Wewa does. A few people that didn't want to go into Lusaka City Market. He was going around asking them, interviewing them, where would you like to be? Why don't you want to go there? And all this kind of stuff. Why didn't you use that kind of a model to understand where the people are coming from and where they would like to be? Yes, I understand they're actually occupying places where they're not supposed to be, but what is the best place? Listen to the people that voted for you, people that brought you into power. My first question. Here's my second question, and my second question is about the garbage collection in Lusaka town. Lusaka is the dirtiest place anybody can go to ever in this world. I can tell you this right now. Look at Rwanda. How has Rwanda managed to bring their country to the way it is? You see no garbage anywhere. But again, you did mention some very important things. That same garbage can bring employment. That same garbage, when burnt properly, you can incinerate it. You can create incinerators to get that garbage, get into the incinerator. The incinerators, if done properly, they can actually produce electricity. Zambia is a country that has blackouts all the time. You guys know that more than I do. But what we have these cadres that are all over the streets, people who are crying out, people who voted for you, people who you promised employment, they don't have jobs now. They can collect that same garbage. The one thing that you should have been thinking about was to create an incinerator where all this garbage can be collected every single day, and those people can get employment. I think I have a lot of questions for you, as you can see, but I'll end there for now. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right, thank you so much, Nachisengu. And just before the PS comes in to respond to those two questions or concerns, I'd like to invite Lance to also ask probably two questions. Then we have the PS to respond.
All right, thank you so much.
Eating a lot of onions, eh? Now I'm saying you're working on the assumption that I eat a lot of onions and I'll be able to remember all the questions. But then you can go ahead.
All right. So my questions are very easy. PS, I will take you back to what you said. The fact that local government looks after the local authorities, or you police the local authorities, which is the council in this case. My first question borders on the issue of public health. Public health in the sense that we have seen time and again many people complaining about the health status of different buildings that are around town. For example, I would tell you Indeco House and Findeco House. Immediately you just get into the reception, you even feel the change of the air. You are from outside where you come in from, there's fresh air, you get into the building, it's like you've gotten into a contaminated area. So those complaints have come in. What are the public health inspectors doing to see to it that if there's a recommendation that such a building needs to be closed, gets to be closed, and then NHA, which is National Housing Authority, gets to work on the building to see to it that it's conducive for the people that are occupying different offices in that area. Then my second question, obviously, I'll get to bring you back to the same councils again. Councils are mandated to yes, to pick garbage collection or solid waste disposal. I know you talked about it, but what is the partnership between you, the local council, and these private people that collect this garbage at a fee from compounds? Let's not talk about town. Let's talk about compounds, companies, where they charge maybe a 5 kwacha or 50 kwacha per month, or all these other charges that are there. What kind of a relationship do you share, and what happens if you pay that 50 kwacha and they don't come and collect that garbage, what punishment do you give to such erring people? Thank you so much, PS.
All right, PS, you may come in now and respond to those concerns and questions.
Thank you very much. Like I said, I'm probably not eating so much onions, but I can still I jotted down a few things so that I don't miss out anything that critical. You know, Lance, I'll start with the questions from Lance. You know, you've raised matters around public health, and you're actually suggesting to say a place like Findeco, Indeco, probably needs to be, you know, to be closed down, because when you go in there, it is smelling. There's a stench, and in your view, it is unsanitary. I am not too sure that Nachisengu will agree with you, because Nachisengu has just been telling us to say that you knew there's a problem, that these booths are unsanitary. Because I think when I was giving a response, I actually did indicate to say some of the challenges that are associated with these booths is that they were operating in an environment which is unsanitary. They were posing a number of challenges. So you're asking me a question to say, where are the public health inspectors? What are they doing about this? That is the question I was addressing myself to when I was actually saying that the councils now would not have an excuse. They would have to go in and do their work, because in the past, the excuse which was being advanced was that there are people interfering in their operations. When you go to carry out an inspection and you find there's a problem, before you do anything, you'll be receiving a phone call to say chokani kone abone bantu batosa wabwirako. In the process, compromising this officer and leaving an unsanitary environment. In short, an abnormal situation was being normalized by political cadres. This is what government is now saying. We should no longer condone that. We should not live in that manner. Secondly, your questions really, I think, were more or less on public health, but I'll now try and link them to the questions by Nachisengu. Nachisengu says Lusaka is one of the dirtiest places in the whole world. She doesn't live here. She's in the UK, but she's wherever in the world she is. Sorry, I'm being presumptuous, but I'm just assuming that she's probably in the UK. She says Lusaka is the dirtiest place. Kigali is clean. I don't know if Lusaka is the dirtiest place, but I know that Lusaka is reasonably dirty, particularly in the central business district. And I've also been told, I've heard that Kigali is very clean. The question that we must address our minds to is, why is Kigali clean? It is because there's the rule of law. People do not trade anywhere. People know where to dump garbage. She asked a question to say, did government not know that there were street vendors or not street vendors, there were booths as they were getting into office? The answer is everyone knows that those booths were there, and everyone knows that those booths did not exist on Cairo Road 10 years ago. Everybody knows to say that when we had an outbreak of cholera, those booths were taken out and people were told to say, go back into the market. It's an open secret to say that the markets are vacant. There are a number of people are resisting to go into the market. Why? It is because we had allowed ourselves as a people to accept an abnormality as being normal. And I think that as a people, we should also desist from mixing politics with ordinary livelihood. When something is wrong, it is wrong. If a place is dirty, it is dirty. It doesn't matter whether it is Haamaundu who resides there, it is Nachisengu who resides there, it is Chaza who resides there. The place is dirty. And if it needs to be cleaned, people must take up the responsibility of cleaning. Cairo Road is dirty. Who's responsible for generating this dirt? Amongst the people who are responsible for generating this dirt are the people who are operating in an environment where there are no toilets. I can tell you a few days ago, we were near Stanbic carrying out some cleaning. And I can tell you the smell that was coming from there, you could clearly tell to say that people were using these booths as toilets. People were using these booths as places for selling of illicit alcohol. People were using these booths for selling drugs. They were doing all kinds of crazy things in these booths. And people were asking questions to say, why is government allowing this? And I asked myself a question to say, but who is government? Isn't it you and me? So what we ought to do is that when corrective action is being taken, at times it appears like it is cruel, but over a period of time, you will come to understand to say, there's no cruelty at all. If you have a child and you discipline your child, you pinch the mbovu mwamushota mwana to mwana Sunday. What you are doing is you are instilling discipline in that child. You will not start pampering a child who's doing wrong, because you'll be actually be spoiling this child. I did mention Madam Nachisengu to say there was engagement and people were being advised to say these are not designated trading places. You have to find alternatives. You ask a question to say, but what did government do about it? But the fundamental question that you must be looking at is, how did these people find themselves in the places which is not designated? So that's why we are saying, let the council be mandated to do their work. Allow the council to do their work properly, and you see that we will not have all these problems. Of course, amongst the people operating in these booths, some of them are victims of circumstances, but corrective action has to be taken, because one day there will be an outbreak of cholera, people might die, and people will be saying, what was government doing about it? One day there could have been an accident, people are bashed, or a booth is run over by a vehicle, and people will be saying, why didn't government realize to say this booth was in the wrong place? So it is important that we look at things from that perspective. The booth owners were engaged, the mobile network providers have been engaged to say that they need to get involved as well in terms of putting standardized booths. A number of solutions are being put forth by a number of people, but for now, I cannot really go into details till such a time that some of these ideas are actualized. And remember, the area which has been, where booths have been relocated or people have been told to relocate, is in the city, it's in the central business district. It is along the highways where, there was a danger that people one day can get injured. We must look at things from that perspective. I think I've probably answered all the questions. If there's a question that I've not ably answered, Chaza, perhaps you could help me by reminding me. I can attempt to, give a response.
I think Nachisengu also talked about the positive use of garbage as we get to have it managed in terms of incinerators and the like.
Yes, of course. That is the positive part of it. But what we must realize to say that is probably a long-term objective. I think the last time I featured on Ubuntu, I did indicate to say that in Lusaka there's a solid waste management company which is being operationalized. The board is in place, and very soon they'll begin operating. And those are some of the things that they'll be looking at. They'll be looking at how to clear the dump site in Chunga, how to utilize the garbage which is being dumped there and perhaps being converted into electricity to service the communities around there. Those are big business models. And I actually did also indicate to say, right now there are people in Mississippi compound who collect plastics and sell to recycling companies. These are opportunities that are available. I also did indicate, and if I did not mention, a few days ago I had an encounter. I met a person, a security guard in Chilenge, who's also collecting plastics, and I approached him to say, "What is it that you are doing with these plastics?" He said, "Boss, I am a plastic magula, so in factor. So every so often, kugula, my main job in malonda. But from this, the other day I was walking in near Lusaka Girls School. I saw another man carrying a huge sack, and it had empty water bottles in there. So I was inquisitive. I said, "Boss, the man says, Nima bottle, mpeleka kuti. Kuliwewa magula, wama penti, wagula hivi." And he gave me another example. So I just asked him out of curiosity, say, "Every day mapanga zingati." Mapanga about 80 kwacha. So all these are opportunities which are available. Now, the role of government is to ensure that the environment is conducive for people to make money. The role of government is to point to people to say, there's a possibility that you can make money from this. But in terms of moving towards actualizing that potential, it is the responsibility of an entrepreneur. It is the responsibility of you and I as parents. It's the responsibility of you and I as brothers and sisters to say, "Emo, why don't you do this? I heard that you can make money from this." Incinerators. We actually have, as a country, I think Chilanga Cement is working on a project. There's an incinerator which they are working on, and they are willing to partner with communities around the Chilanga, with communities in Lusaka, and perhaps beyond. This incinerator has the capability of burning the plastics and papers, wood, etc., and used in the production of cement. And that's an opportunity where people can make money. And what that will do is that it will be addressing the issue of not having garbage in the streets. So as people who are complaining to say the streets are dirty, you'll be happy. Those who will be taking this garbage to Chilanga Cement will be given money, so they'll be happy that they're earning an income. Chilanga Cement will be using that in their production process. They will be happy to say they've got the raw material to use in their production process. Government will be collecting taxes because Chilanga Cement will be making more money, so government will be happy. So we actually have a scenario where if we exploit these opportunities that are available before us as a people, everyone will end up being happy in this scenario. So the question is, are we taking pragmatic steps towards actualizing this? From a government perspective, we are saying yes, we are taking pragmatic steps, we're informing the public, and we are creating an environment conducive for people to work. So now the onus lies on the people to take up this responsibility and ensure that they begin to benefit from such opportunities which have been made available.
Thank you so much. And time is really not our best ally. For now, I'll pose the last question, probably that you can take within 2 minutes. There's been an outcry from Ndola specifically that there are witch doctors that are, installing adverts, banners, posters, and the like. And people are saying it's too much of it, understanding that this falls under the jurisdiction of the local authorities. What are you doing about it as regards the regulation of, such installation of such adverts?
Thank you very much for that question. And I think if you go to Ndola City Council, you'll probably find that those people who are putting up these adverts have got no authority at all from the council. These are people who just go and stick things by a wall. These are people who just go, put an advert on a tree and so on and so forth. Again, this is pointing to the fact that as a people, we had decided to pay a blind eye, have a deaf ear over the wrongs that are happening in our society. So my response to this question is that the local authorities must step up to the challenge. The local authorities must ensure that as much as possible, they know what is happening within their jurisdiction in respect to their mandate. The local authorities must, with the help of the public, with the help of you and I, ensure that things are sanitized. Respect of the rule of law, one of the pillars in the 8th National Development Plan. So it is important, extremely important, that we respect the law. And if we do so, you find that even when a person goes and tries and place an advert where they're not supposed to, they'll be stopped. People will actually say, I remember when we were young, as you are moving, if you attempt to insult and there's an elderly person near you, you will be lucky to get away with it without being beaten. But as we go on, as we grow up, we have seen that we have this laissez-faire attitude. We are relaxed. We don't care. You find that a child can be insulting, and when you attempt to speak to them, they'll even tell you to say, "Who are you?" If you insist, you go with them to their parents. The parent will actually be the first one to say, "Who are you? I can take you to the police. How do you handle my child like that?" So we have a responsibility as society to take corrective action. We need to work on our attitudes. We need to change the way we perceive things. We should not always look at things through the political lens. We will lose it when we do that. Let us look at it from, is this good or bad? How is it meant to benefit our society? And when we look at it from that perspective, as we are having a discussion, you'd find that we will reach quick resolution because we'll be looking at a matter at hand as opposed to who has done it. And I think that if we go in that direction, we will actually post a lot of positives in the next 1 year, in the next 2 years, and we'll actually be as we go on, we'll be applauding ourselves as citizens to say, why did we not do this much earlier? Back to the issue of booths. I do recall when they were removed the first time, driving through Kamwala, walking through Kamwala, people were actually saying, yeah, stands on zero. That's some town Monica Bwino. Kamwala, Panimashopi Bwino. And people were happy. And that is what we need. But then, as a country, we again surrendered this newfound freedom or liberties, and we surrendered it back to cadres. So we are saying, local authorities, please play your role. As a ministry, we are there to support you as you execute what is mandated by law. So play your role, ensure that people operating from designated places, ensure that people go into markets, ensure that people do not, go littering anyhow, ensure that people are subscribing to waste management companies. And I think just to go back, there was a question which I did not respond where I think Lance was asking to say, what do you do, or what relationship do you have with these companies that collect garbage in residential areas? Those are private companies which have been contracted by the council to collect garbage from designated places. And when they do not perform, the residents are at liberty to report to the council to say, a company which is operating in my area is not meeting the prescribed standards, and the local authority will be obliged to entertain that complaint. And if the complaint is persisting, the contract for that particular performance contractor can be terminated. The whole idea is to manage the waste properly. That is the essence of it.
All right, great indeed. I've seen Himba has joined us on set. Himba, good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Chaza, and good evening, viewers. Good evening, our leader.
Good evening.
Please go ahead with your contribution or question.
It's not really a question, Chaza, it's a contribution. I think it's about these Maambo. We are all talking about income, on the income part, where people are generating income for their living, which really we all agree. And literally, when they talk about income generation through the booth, we stand with them. I literally stand with them. But I think there's one part which we also need to bring to the public, and public should understand that these booths, for me, I think I also stand with the local authorities by removing them. As long as they are going to take these people to the right or designated place for them to continue their livelihood. Because as I can tell you, or my personal experience, these booths are not only used as Airtel money booths. There's a lot that happens in there. These booths, they are used as toilets. The people, they are even raped through these booths. They are actually somehow health hazard to me. I would say they are health hazard to the community. And above all, I strongly feel the majority people who benefited money from these booths, it's not even the ordinary poor Zambian. The majority of the people who are collecting money, these are cadres. And I'm reliably informed that for somebody to mount a booth in town, they were paying an amount like 5,000 just for that booth to be mounted. And as people now may claim that no, we're paying money to the local authority. Anyway, I don't have much information and I can't stand in for the local authorities. I think it's their responsibility to answer. But the most of the money were collected by cadres, and the local authorities were overpowered by cadres, which we all know. I feel for them. I stand with my sisters and brothers who've lost genuinely source of income. But I strongly feel that the act of the booth, it has also the political interest at play. But let's look at it on the other thing, what was happening. People were raped in those booths. There are people who were sleeping, and even in those booths, and even when you look at Yajama booths, uzape that you don't even have anywhere to step. So I stand with the government, and I also plead with the government just to find a place where they can take those sisters and brothers of ours, and they should also be supported and let the revenue go to the local authorities, not the cadres. You are going to find, if we're doing a serious investigation, most of these people who are even talking about it seriously, like the other lady I saw who was saying, I mean, a person who's really in pain and grieved, how can you even start sending that message? Those booths, there are more to read that were happening in those booths. I submit.
Thank you so much, Himba. We do greatly appreciate. Not forgetting Wallens, we saw your message. Justin also, we saw your message. We appreciate. It's good to have your contribution here. Looking at time, I would like us to make conclusions. Sir, I'll give you 1 minute just to do your concluding remarks.
Well, my concluding remarks would be that as government, we feel for the people who genuinely lost out in terms of income, but corrective action has to be taken. The local authorities must be allowed to operate, and as a people, we must learn to operate from designated places. There's always a start to everything, and at times it might appear to be tough, but eventually we will get there. And I think as Himba was speaking, something just came to my mind to say, I think you have heard or read to say at times that people in the local authorities have their salaries delayed. Why do they have their salaries delayed? The revenue that is supposed to come from some of these areas in town, because they were so uncoordinated, does not come forth. And in the process, a lot of garbage is generated, and the council are compelled to drive into town 5, 6, 7 times perhaps, burning fuel. And in the process of burning fuel, this money, which ordinarily, if the garbage was being managed properly, all they needed to do is go in 1 or 2 trips. So they would have been saving money on 5 trips, and they would have money to contribute towards salaries. So it should be looked at it from a holistic point of view. The bottom line, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, is that sanity must be restored, and sanity is about ensuring that we do the right thing. So thank you once again for giving me an opportunity to have an engagement with you. I've seen a number of comments, I've heard sentiments. Some of you might not agree with what we are saying, and yet a number of you are also agreeing with what we are saying. That is how life is. We are human beings, we can have disagreements, but what is important is when we are doing some of these things, it is the intention. Do you mean well? If the answer is yes, proceed and ensure that you do well. If along the way you discover that a decision that you had taken was a wrong decision, it would not make you less of a man if you come back to the same public and say, I am sorry. So for now, I thank you once again, and I wish you God's blessing. Good night.
Sir, we are so profoundly humbled and highly indebted for actually according us this chance and be our guest here to give us an in-depth of what the local government is, what it offers, and so on and so forth. It's not the first time, and we are so glad that your doors are ever open. We'll definitely keep on inviting you. To our viewers, we are so excited that you have actually joined us up to this time and our program delayed. Despite that, you've been here and you've been with us. We greatly appreciate. It's been your program, your favorite program on Ubuntu channel, Meet Your Leaders, every Wednesday. Do meet us next week. For now, we are saying God bless you. Have a pleasant night.